what differentiates individuals now is not what they know, but what they can do with what they
Yeah.
know.
Hi, everyone. This is Christine Miles. Welcome to Shine a Light. Today, it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Keith Keating to the podcast. Welcome, Keith. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here with you, Christine.
You're Canadian, right? Are you
Because
from?
I'm nice.
Well, listen. I just might want to come over the border. I don't know, just as of
This
late.
conversation is going to take a different turn if you want to go there.
No, no. I just want to. I love Canada. It's just beautiful there. So, and people are very nice. So we'll take it. But let me talk about you, and then we'll get to know you a little bit more. So you are the Chief Learning Officer and Workforce Futurist at BDO, where you champion human-centered learning as the foundation for organizational success. You have a 25-year career in talent development and a lecturer at the University of Pennsylvania, author of award-winning books, The Trusted Learning Advisor and Hidden Value. Your own journey from high school dropout to earning a doctorate, I want to learn more about this, fuels your passion for lifelong learning and your commitment to helping others take control of their careers. Through your work, writing, and teaching, you help L&D professionals navigate an evolving business landscape with curiosity, courage, and the belief in the transformative power of learning. And you reside in Toronto. So it's so nice to have you here. So quite a resume and quite a lot of people that you influence. But let's go back. Talk about where you grew up, your beginning, and how you ended up dropping out of school to get to where you are today. I'd love to hear more.
So I'm a new Canadian. If I introduce myself, I say I was born in Germany. I'm American
Mm,
by passport, and I'm Canadian by choice.
nice. And how long have you been in Canada?
Uh, about 10 years off and on, but
Okay.
4 years as a permanent, 3 years as a permanent resident.
Yeah. Well, with I have German background, so that you're speaking my language here. So, so well, very nice, very
Yeah,
good. So you grew up in Germany? Is that where you
all over
started?
the world. So my father was in the U.S. military. He's an Army
Mm,
colonel, and we grew up for the first 8 years in Germany, then Korea, Japan, Hawaii, and
hmm.
finally moved to the United States when I was about 13. And so at this point, my education system experience was quite skewed. I had
Yeah.
a very diverse learning experience. Like, for example, you don't learn American history in Europe. Like, it's just such a blip compared to the rest of world
Yeah.
history. So I was
Yeah.
behind.
We're kind of babies.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was behind on that. I was always the new kid. Because we moved so much, I didn't really make friends. I don't have a place that I call home. I had to learn to be agile and adaptable without even understanding what that meant or the value that would
Hmm.
come from those experiences. And unfortunately, my mom died when I was 14 from cancer. And so that went
Hmm.
on for about a year or so. So you've got moving almost every year, always the new kid, different education system, then dealing with mother's death. So my father decides, let's move to Florida because he has family there. And we thought we could have the
Hmm.
nucleus of Florida. And I struggled significantly in school there. But I had always struggled a little bit in school, but that was probably the worst one. I was bullied. I
Hmm.
was, my parents were told by some teachers that I was above average and I should skip a grade. And then they would go next door and they would tell my dad that I have a learning disability and I should probably be held back or put into special ed classes.
Wow. What was that about? Why such different perspectives?
Mother dying, not able to think, not able to be
Hmm.
present. I
Yeah.
didn't excel in math. I'm just ignorant when it comes to math
Yeah.
and had no desire to learn it. So just all of these compounded experiences, it could have just been the way that the teacher saw me or didn't see me. There
Yeah.
wasn't There really wasn't a specific challenge other than my life was very tumultuous and
Yeah.
I was just trying to survive.
That's a lot. That's a lot of change. That's a lot of not having an anchor or that, foundation. Yeah, that's a lot to process. I'm 14. That's just
Yeah,
all that. That's a lot of moves at a very. I've talked to a lot of people who've moved a lot, and it does have benefits later, but in the process, it's a lot to tackle.
yeah. And the bullying got really bad. My home life was really bad, and eventually there was some psychological issues, and I ended up in a psychiatric hospital.
Mm,
And it was a beautiful experience because it saved me in many ways from home. It saved me from school. They recognized that there was nothing wrong with me and that I just needed a
mhm.
safe space.
Yeah.
They offered me the ability to get my GED. And the way that we structured it was, and this is sort of a loophole that I later on learned, but if you have one credit from a community college, no one's looking at your high school diploma, whether you did or didn't have
Mhm.
it. And so
Right.
they had a program with one of the community colleges. And so I was 15 at this time. I was able to drop out, get my GED while in the institution, and then start community college so that by the time that I was released, because I was emancipated at that point, once you hit 16, that you can't
Yeah.
stay. But they were putting me back out in the world with a couple of college credits.
Hmm.
So it allowed me to not have the stigma per se of being a high school dropout, but the stigma was very much still there from my father,
Mm.
from any family member, and it was you will never amount to anything because you're a high school dropout, you're destined for life and fast food, as if there's something wrong with working in fast food,
Right.
which
Right.
there's not, and you don't notice until then you don't have workers, and it's like, wait, we don't have anybody working there.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't
And
appreciate what that offers to us.
I did exactly what they said. I got a job in fast food and
Hmm.
worked there for a couple of years. And so that's the idea of being a high school dropout was such a heavy crown to wear for so many years that I lied about it so much that I actually forgot and had convinced myself that I didn't do that. And then it wasn't until about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I was having a discussion with somebody. So it was before the doctorate, and I had blurted it out, and I just started
Uh,
crying, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I had lied about this so long, I forgot.
because of the shame that was
Hmm.
bestowed upon you, it sounds
Yeah.
like. And we do kind of stigmatize that, at least in the States, a bit, don't we?
Hmm.
Because it's, even in Philly, it's where you went to high school, not where you went to college. Like there's
Mm.
a lot of that. And I interviewed a CIO that one time on stage, and asked him, longer story, but I was getting his backstory about his passion and purpose. And he said he did not have a college degree, and he was a CIO at a large organization. He said the first thing he did was go to the CEO and say, we need to change our standard of entry to our company because we're missing out on incredible people because we're requiring a bachelor's degree, let alone not having a high school degree. So there's so much I can see associated with that. And I also started my career working in a psychiatric hospital as a therapist. So the fact that that became the place that saved you,
Hmm.
it just gives my heart so much because I think the right places and getting the right help, and it's very courageous of you to talk about because that's also been stigmatized, is remarkable, especially now since so much of that's gone away because
Hmm.
there's not enough longer term care facilities for youth and for adults. So, that's really quite a story to turn that around as you did, and to really use that as a place of healing rather than more, where it could have led. Yeah.
I think that's partially why I got my doctorate, and it was much later on. I just graduated 3 years ago, I think. Was I wanted to get on the other side because on paper I look fantastic.
Mm.
And I love my resume. It's beautifully crafted.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
But I mean, I made all of that, and I wanted to get on the other side so that then I can throw the rope back down for other people like
Yeah.
myself who never even dreamed that it would be possible because you're a high school dropout. There were so many things that I just never bothered even thinking about what I could become. If I could provide value to the world, if I could amount to anything, because I was told that I would never.
Mm.
And so now I want to say to others who have either they've been through that or their kids are, struggled in school, there are alternative paths to what
Yeah.
success may look like. And it's like our fingerprints. Our fingerprints are so uniquely our own, just like our journeys to get to wherever we are today. I think we spend too much time looking at the end result. If you meet me right now and you look at this Instagram moment, you think that's what it is or that represents who I am, but no, there's high school dropout, there's the
Yeah.
psychiatric institute, I've experienced homelessness, all of the things to get to this point. And so it's for me it's important to make sure that people know the origin story rather than
Yeah.
the end picture perfect moment.
Because it doesn't match is what you're saying. Yeah. And people think that success is, just there all the time, and it's not. And so it's a lived experience to help people see that you can do that too. And what do you think about where we are with education in terms of those traditional ways that we educate and think that what success and the path to success looks like? Because there's so much changing on the educational landscape with AI and the cost of college, which just seems insane to me. And and then I want to talk more about what go back into some of the where you left off. But any thoughts about that, or where are you with all that in the world these days, having lived a different path?
Uh, at least in North America, our education system is significantly behind.
Yeah.
It, Formal education as we see it today didn't exist before the Industrial Revolution. It was created to train people to be inside of a box. And we're still teaching that same methodology in the same
Yeah.
manner. Education is supposed to prepare children or adults for the future. Well, we, first of all, have no idea what's coming. And so that's hard to teach for. But that
Yeah.
system hasn't evolved in hundreds of years. It's archaic.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
just watching one of the top rated TED Talks the other day, and it was by Sir Richard. I can't think of his name, but his TED Talk was how schools kill creativity. And
Mm.
it's an amazing TED Talk if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But he talks about how today we just diagnose kids as ADD. So if you're disruptive, you
Hmm.
have ADD,
Yeah.
you put them
Yeah.
on Ritalin or whatever the drugs are now, and you try and get that out of them rather than embracing
Hmm.
that's who they are and finding out ways that they can um, manifest that and continue to learn and lean into it.
Hmm.
So the answer to your question is our education systems are significantly behind. There are a few universities. There's one, I cannot think of it off the top of my head. It starts with an M. It's going to really bother me. I'm looking at my bookshelf. Um, this university doesn't have tests.
Yeah.
It goes back to kind of the idea of liberal arts.
Mm.
So I think that there are some. Oh, it's going to bother me.
Well, as you're because if I say something, that's always when your brain can relax and you
Yeah.
can think of it, or you can look it up because we have Google. So I appreciate that. But it seems to me, and I'm a master's in psychology. I study psychology. I also wasn't very good in math or science, and I went to graduate school to Penn against all odds because I wanted people to think I was smart. That was my first reason for applying because I hadn't taken math past algebra. I barely got into college because I was so poor on the SATs. Thankfully, I was an athlete, so the field hockey coach did some work on my end, and then I overreached. But that was part of what I wanted to have be like assumed when I walked into the room, and I thought a Penn degree would do that. Now I ended up falling in love with the program and other things, but I get that kind of feeling of, I want this proven. I just want this off the table to some degree. But now it's like you have to pick a job to go, like when you pick a major, not a major. It's like it's a job. It feels like a lot of times it's a job title,
Hmm.
that I'm in hotel management, or, but that doesn't feel as broad. It feels so, and then, well, what if you want to change your mind? Then you're kind of in this pigeonhole versus, like you said, these liberal arts programs that really teach us how to think in a different way, not just to learn that particular profession.
And your trick worked. It's Minerva University.
Oh, okay. I'm glad the trick worked.
Minerva University, they don't have tests. It's a beautiful approach to education. It's very affordable. There aren't, unfortunately, a lot of
Mhm.
seats available. So I
Yeah,
think that there are some solutions happening, but for me, if I had children, I don't. I would not be pushing them to university. I would be pushing them to get the work experience and then get the
yeah.
company to pay for you to go back.
Mm,
That's what I did. It took me years and years and years to get my degrees, but I just would use the tuition reimbursement and take the two courses, and the next year the two courses.
mhm,
And I eventually grew to love learning more because it was applicable. I knew
mhm.
there was relevance and context versus being at 17, 18. You don't know. You don't know
Yeah,
anything. So get the work
yeah.
experience, then you can figure out where your interest is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think this is so important for, because so many people are parents. I'm also, I don't have kids. I have nieces, but I think getting out of this one-dimensional thinking in terms of what success should look like is really what we're getting down to here. Your success may looking at the resume. I always say it's golf. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, right? If you hit on the 18th hole pretty well, you want to come back for more. So your resume looks like, at the end, look at what you've done, but it's not a traditional path. And so many, I think that could be very relieving to a lot of parents and to a lot of kids, that there's a lot of ways to become successful and to have the quality of life, and living some passion and purpose rather than just following the traditional means. So you left off where you ended up starting with your college degree, or getting into college, kind of leaving your stigma behind, at least on paper, maybe not emotionally for yourself. That took a little bit longer, but you had some college credits when you came out at 16. So where did you go? Where did you go after that? Where did you go next?
I went to Wendy's for a couple of years, but I knew that
Okay.
I wanted to be something else. And I think I was about 18. I'm old enough where you had to look in the newspaper to find jobs.
Yeah,
So
me
it
too.
was
Yeah,
Sunday. That was the day you couldn't wait for it.
that's the day. Yep.
And there was a job in there for a Microsoft Office trainer. I
Huh.
used Microsoft Office and I didn't have a good experience with teachers. So I thought, how hard could it be to teach this? Long story short, I went to the interview. I was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. I coughed through the whole thing. They thanked me. And then they called me a week later and offered me the job.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
was 17, basically teaching Social Security Administration offices how to use Microsoft Office 2000. I walk into my first class and ended up breaking down in tears and running out because I was so overwhelmed. I had no idea what I was doing.
Sure.
I was terrible.
Sure.
But that night I studied really hard and I got 0.001% better. And the next day, 0.001% better. And eventually, once you bank all of that, you start to actually get better. What I ended up learning was that part of my superpower is learning how to learn, in the
Mm.
sense that I had to take all these programs that I didn't really learn. A few of them, Microsoft Word, yes, but the other ones I didn't really know. And I had to teach myself first how to use them. And so I had to be the
Yeah.
learner. And then
Yeah.
my brain was able to break it apart and put it into systematic processes that then I could explain it back in a way that other people understood. Now, mind you, I had
Mhm.
no idea this was happening at the time. All I knew is
Sure,
I was
sure.
up late trying to figure out how to do this. And then the
Yeah.
next day I'm teaching something I just learned 10 hours before. But about 6 months in, I remember teaching a macro formula and the light went on in a woman's eyes and she got it.
Hmm.
And it was
It's such a great feeling, isn't it?
one of the first times that I remember feeling valuable. Like I have
Mm.
something to contribute. And there was a bit of a rush and some endorphins.
Sure,
And
sure.
it was like, okay, I think maybe I've got this. This feels good.
Mm, mm,
And so that really set me down the path of being a trainer. And it went slowly over years from being a job to being a career to being a passion. And now I would say it's a calling
yeah.
because I understand the power of learning and what it can
Mm,
do for you as an individual, what it can unlock. And I want for everybody to understand that and to practice it. Because a
yeah,
lot of times we think once you're finished with high school or university, then you're done. Like you're done with school, you're done learning,
yeah.
but you can't be done.
Just beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe this seems like an obvious question, but so what can learning do for us?
Learning can unlock your future. Learning makes you unstoppable.
Mhm.
It learning can empower you, enable you, and for me, encourage you to be able to take control over your future. I don't live in fear for my job. I've been fired plenty of times. I've been made redundant plenty of times. I'm probably
Yeah,
not finished. And that's one of the myths that I wish were talked about more in the US, that the US is an at will country. You can be
yeah,
fired at will for anything. You don't need a reason. And so
right.
people buy into this, oh, we're family and I've
Yeah.
worked here for 10 years, I'm safe. No one's ever safe. I
The
mean,
security blanket is not
no, it
real.
doesn't exist. And you have to
Yeah.
accept that and be and prepare for it. And the way that you
Mm,
prepare for it is by learning. Never stop learning. I don't live in fear because I know that I can learn whatever it is I need to be able to pivot to do the next thing. Whatever the
yeah.
next thing is, wherever that gap may exist, my career has happened because I look at signals in the marketplace for jobs and all these fancy job titles. Like for me, it was about 18 years ago, it was change management.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
you went
yep.
to, I think it was monster.com, if that's still around. You go to Monster and there's thousands of change management experts. And I was transitioning. I had left L&D. I was a dancer and then I broke my leg and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So I was like, all right, I got to get back into the industry. What's out there? And so change management. I'm like, okay, Google, what is change management? Oh, I can do all that. I mean, I don't have the job
Mm,
title, but I have the
yeah,
transferable skills.
yeah.
And so it's important to recognize what you do, what the jobs that are available that are out there, what they're asking for, and then literally going line by line to figure out what do I do that relates to that
Mhm.
where it can transfer to that.
Yeah,
And so,
because it we can people can feel so pigeonholed and stuck, can't they, into that job they've had, that title they've had, versus what they actually contribute, or the
yes,
and let's talk about value that you deliver, because that's we know most people know that once a job description's written, it's obsolete, right? So but even consultants talk about this all the time. I'm not just delivering a service, I'm delivering a value, but I don't know that employees in companies small to large necessarily think of themselves that way, but that's what I hear you're driving at.
yes. And to build on that, that's what the second book was about, hidden value. And it's written for L&D practitioners, but it's completely transferable. And if you don't want to buy the book, I'll save you the time right now and explain what I mean by that.
Okay, or both.
For a long time, when people referred to workers and value components, they talked about the knowledge economy. We live in a
Hmm.
knowledge economy. It's all based on what you know. That doesn't exist anymore. We live now in a value economy. And what I mean by that is knowledge was the currency, but knowledge is no longer scarce. This device holds more
Right, you just did
knowledge.
it.
Yeah, holds more
Yeah,
knowledge than I will ever have or ever need to
yeah,
have. And
yeah.
so What differentiates individuals now is not what they know, but what they can do with what they
Yeah.
know, how they can use these tools to enable them. I make the case that value isn't one dimensional. Value shows up across three potential lenses. So when we think about value, there's economic value.
Okay.
What is the value? How are you contributing to the business? How are you helping from maybe a productivity, quality, retention, growth?
Hmm.
If you can't answer today what value you provide to your organization, you're at risk.
Hmm.
You have to not only understand how you contribute, but to make sure that you have that sound bite so then you can be talking about it, to make sure that your people leader can talk about the value that you provide. And so there's this economic value that we provide to our organization. And if you aren't sure,
Let's just
go ahead.
let's just hit that for a second, because I think it's so important, because now I think we're getting into some salesmanship as an employee in terms of understanding our worth and our value and being able to articulate that. And I think that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. I know it is, because I've talked to a lot of people that that have said how uncomfortable it is. But it's so important what you're saying. That doesn't mean that you have to boast and that you have to self-promote and be the biggest politician in your organization, but it does mean that you need to know how to articulate it, because your boss may not know how to articulate it, right?
100%. I just had a conversation with someone on my team. It's a leader, and she has multiple people that report to her. And it was a very transparent conversation. I said, listen, every year there is a time period where I am asked who doesn't provide value. Is there
Mm,
anybody on your team that you can cut? And I
mm,
said to her, I don't know what your people do. And so
yeah,
I want you to understand, I know what this team does, I know what this team does. And so if I'm called to the mat and I'm asked, who should we cut? I'm going to be looking at your team. It is your
yeah,
responsibility as their people leader to make sure that you can articulate their value to me. So
mm-hmm,
what is their value? And this person
hmm,
couldn't articulate it. I said, look, I'll give you a month. You got a month, but they should be able to articulate their value to you, and you should be able to
yeah,
articulate your team's value to me. And if you can't do that, then you're not successful as a leader.
yeah.
And so,
Well, this is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, it starts with, to your point, with your own awareness and being able to articulate that. And as you said, it's not about I'm the best and this ego
No,
driven standpoint.
no,
But if you look at a business exists to make money, every single business. I
yep.
don't care how
It's not,
altruistic they want to be. If you're not making
that's right,
money,
that's
you're
right,
not going to be in
that's right,
business.
that's right.
What role do you play in this ecosystem?
Yeah,
What cog are you in that machinery, and be able to
yeah,
articulate the value and then be able to maybe double click on that. And we're going to go down a rabbit hole here, but can AI do that? And if AI can do that, we'll figure out how to use AI to help you
right,
do that job better,
that's right.
and then be able to articulate that to your people leader. Like, hey, I know that we're looking at AI. I know that we're looking at operations and savings and efficiency. And I know that AI can help me be better at my job by doing X,
Mm-hmm.
Y, Z. You have to be your own advocate and your biggest advocate. As much as we'd like to think, again, that the organization is our family and our bosses are our friends, they're not at the end of the day
Yeah,
when it comes down to
yeah.
money. And you have to be your biggest advocate for your growth, for your development, and for your value.
This is where I, again, so well said. I think it's so important. I just want to punctuate it, that I think that the idea that our manager, our leader is responsible to take care of us in this way, and they are, and there is a leadership responsibility. You've just defined that very well in the story you just shared. With, it's your responsibility for them to articulate what your team's value is, but we also need to manage up to that. And that it's that communication needs to be a two-way street, because if we just wait for it, if we just wait for our boss to give it to us, they may not know how to do it, and we may not realize they don't know how. So that's where owning that. And I, again, I, my experience is that that's a bit of a pivot for people because it's what we want is for that to come to us, and it's great when it does, but we can affect that as well from what you're talking about.
There's an absolute ego component to it. Who doesn't want to be recognized, valued, appreciated, called out? But you cannot sit by and wait for that to happen. The example that I just
Hmm.
gave you about this leader, what's going to
Yeah.
happen? These people down here may have articulated to that person, but that person has not articulated to me. So they think that they're
Yeah.
advocating, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, where really they need to be advocating even more. I've made it clear to my team at
Absolutely.
any level, reach out to me, talk to me. I
Yeah.
would love for people on my team just to set up a 15-minute, just say, hey, want to share with you some wins that I had for the last quarter.
Mm.
Tell me these stories so that I can then
Yeah.
go and tell the stories.
Yeah.
Don't sit and wait
Yeah.
for somebody to come to you. Advocate for yourself.
It's such important advice that you're sharing here, because again, I think it's giving permission to do that and how to do that. So that was one. So I stopped you because I wanted, what's two?
This is personal value. And
Mm.
specifically, what I think about from this is learning and the value that learning has or provides to individuals. Because learning can help you create your capability, help you create confidence, help you create your identity. Learning changes how people see themselves and also what they believe that they're actually capable of doing.
Hmm.
And then there's societal value. What am I doing to provide value to society? And this can also come from a learning perspective because when I think
Hmm.
about learning, it doesn't just stop at the organization standpoint. When companies are investing in people, then they're building stronger communities. They're
Yeah.
building more resilient industries. They're creating more opportunity. Sometimes, especially in L&D, we often mistake this idea of value as being one dimensional. But value is contextual. It is a bit of a nebulous term. We try and apply it
Hmm.
across the board by just saying, "Oh, does this have value, or doesn't it have value?" But I think for listeners, it's the importance of taking away the fact that you have to be able to articulate your value in your organization where you can. And not just in your organization, I would even argue outside of your organization. Share on LinkedIn
Yeah.
how you're creating value so that
Yeah.
others learn from that and start to follow suit. Because not many people, again, can do this. In fact, I just finished a call right before this, which is why I was late. We were talking about the value proposition. And our
Mm.
firm is struggling right now with our partners, that's senior leadership, where owners of the firm, where they're having difficulty articulating the value of what they do.
Mm.
To leaders,
Well, this is
go ahead.
Well, it's just I think look, I my head's going to this is such important things to think about from your career, but also just for who you are and how many people I mean, I think about the way we talk to ourselves as humans, and it's not great sometimes. And so being able to see the value you contribute in the community, in your company, how you are as a human being, your personal value. These are all things that they transcend your work life. One feeds the other, right? When you understand your value and able to articulate, that gives you a lot of personal power in so many ways that I think it's I mean, it's pretty. It's just it can be infectious in just such an important way. But I don't know that we tap into this enough. I don't think we think about this enough in terms of how it defines who we are before we even walk into work.
Mhm. And use Gen AI to help you with this activity. It, it
What's a question you ask? Tell me, help the listeners understand. How do you do that?
I would go into my Gen AI tool and I would explain what I do at work. I would include my job
Mm,
title. For example, I would say, I am a machine operator. I've been working at this company for 7 years. Here are different tasks that I do each day.
mm,
Help me articulate the value that I provide to this organization.
beautiful. I mean, that makes it's this is where that tool, but it's all the quality of the questions you ask it to some degree, right?
It is.
So, and my experience is that, and I was telling somebody earlier that I serve on a college board. I'm the only non-MBA member of the MBA board, which is, and what I hear business leaders want are what you're describing. Like, if you have the ability to learn, if you have that agility, if you have that desire, if you have that skill that you develop, then you're more valuable because I can teach you the nuts and bolts of the job. It's having that flexibility, that coachability, that learning agility, those things that really make you more valuable in the end. Not that the skills aren't great, but then they become more transferable because sometimes the job itself, I mean, you don't want me to operate on anybody, like that's a different that's a different matter, but a lot of jobs we can train to the actual work. It's all these other skills that you're describing that make us really not dispensable as easily.
Absolutely. And to build on that, value doesn't stop with the construct of value. I don't want you just to stop at here's the value I provide. I want you to think like a value seeker. What I mean by that is there are four proponents of value when I put together the value proposition. We need to be value seekers, value
What
creators,
does that mean? What does value seeker mean?
that you're looking in your organization to find opportunities. You're looking in your organization to find the gaps, the problems that exist.
Mm,
More often, if I asked people today, hey, what are some problems that exist? Oh, there's this, and oh, there's this, and there's that, and there's this. And it's very easy for us to complain about that. How about do something about it?
mm,
Because if you're complaining about it, most likely other people are complaining about it too. I've made a career out of solving those problems that people want to just brush away.
yeah. So that's how you seek the value you can.
Exactly. You look for those
All right.
problems that exist, try to solve those gaps. If you can't solve them, maybe you can be a connector. That's a big
Yeah.
part of what I do every day is I just try to connect things that I see throughout the organization. It could be connecting two people together who I've heard you complain about this. I heard you complain about
Mm,
this. I went and I looked on Gen AI and I did some research and I'm going to bring you together. I'm going to share with you my research. Now I went from value seeker to now I'm creating
okay.
value because I'm bringing you together to try and solve this problem.
And that's the value connector.
Yes.
And there, you said four quadrants, right?
Measuring the value. So
Mm.
that's being able to
What's
tell your story in ways that help you articulate it, but help other people understand it. So for
mm,
me and my team, we do this quarterly. And these are the stories of the output, the outcomes,
yeah,
the impact that we have. Every
yeah.
single worker has done something. I guess I shouldn't say every single. I hope that every single worker has done something each
You probably
quarter.
do it even by accident,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah,
That's
sure.
contributed something
Yeah.
valuable. Track those. I actually have a sheet where each month I go in and I put down when I've done something that I think is impactful or valuable.
Mm,
It's on my sheet. I can go back right now and I can tell you what I did January 2024 that I thought
mm,
contributed value. That way, if I'm ever in a situation where someone's asking or I'm looking to put together my story about value,
yeah.
then I've got those sound bites, if you will, because we know in those moments, but if you don't write it down, you're not going to remember it when you need it.
I can't even tell you what I had for lunch yesterday, Kate, let alone. So, well, and the rule of documentation, if you didn't dive, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we're just, and because we're going to forget. The other thing is we just don't spend enough time celebrating our successes. And I don't mean getting a gift card somewhere. I mean actually talking about and our failures. I mean, frankly, we need both, I think,
Mhm.
but at least to look at what are we doing well and what's working and how did that impact, because that I told a story in my book about a CEO who I love dearly, and he's just so goal oriented. I'm going back 15, 20 years now, but I sat with him in his office after a huge sales meeting where they kicked off a major product. And I mean, It was incredible. They did a movie about it. The whole sales team was flying. It was like we flew home together. Everybody's like high-fiving each other. I sat with him in his office Monday morning, and I said, "Great meeting." And he went, "What meeting?"
Yeah.
And I said, "The national sales meeting, the one that we just came back." He goes, "That was yesterday. I've already moved on." His type A brain that had to take the company forward, that made sense. But I said, "But your team's not, they haven't had a chance to go, how did this impact people? Where did that, they need that time." And we just individually skip over that and too often skip over that as a team. So it's so important to just feel motivated, let alone contributing to the value, right? Both. Yeah.
It's something that I struggle with personally because I'm more like that individual. I'm like, yeah, that was
Yeah.
yesterday. It's time to move on. What else can
Sure.
we do? How can we be
Yeah.
even better? And so
Yeah.
part of my journey right now is trying to pause a bit more, letting the team
Yeah.
really resonate with that win. First of all, identifying all of the wins, making sure that
Yeah.
we're talking about them at least on a quarterly basis, celebrating them rather.
Good for you. Good for you. Way to practice what you preach, Keith. Seriously. So that was three. So what's four?
Uh,
Measure, seeker, creator,
Tell the
measure it.
story of your value.
Tell the story. Okay. Okay. All right. And so this is, you give people the recipe for how to do this now, but more in more detail, I would imagine, in your book so that they can find that and find. I mean, being your self advocate is so important in terms of this. But I love that you're talking about this, about how we can individually impact our own careers, that it can come from a leadership perspective, but we can do this for ourselves as well, which is wonderful. So, by the way, it did not pass by me, and I have to go back because you threw this out here. You said you were a dancer and then you broke your leg. So, well, I went, wait. Nobody's ever accused me of being a dancer. So, where did that part of the story come in? Just out of curiosity, what kind of dancing did you do, and how did was that a career or
It was a career for a little while. I was a backup dancer for Christina Aguilera.
Oh, wow. Okay, you really buried the lead on that one. you were a no, you were a good dancer.
I was okay.
You were,
I
please,
was
that's pretty
okay.
good. So wait, so let me just put it in context. In terms of storytelling. This is where we left off. We'll use your storytelling mojo here. So you're working, you work for Microsoft. You get this and you figure this out. The light bulb goes off for you. You're like, I'm affecting people. Where did the turn go that you just became a backup dancer for Christina Aguilera?
Uh, Part of the reason that I wanted to and fell in love with training is because it's a stage, essentially.
Mm,
You have a
yeah,
captive audience, hopefully, and you're
sure.
performing. It is very performative.
Couldn't agree more.
And so that parallel was always very clear to me. And so I'd always been involved in acting, theater. I'd done some bit parts here or there in New York, some off Broadway shows. And then 9/11 happened.
Mm,
I was with McKinsey and Company at the time and ended up being let go. And at the
mm,
same time, I had gotten a part on the TV show Frasier.
okay.
And so I thought, that's it. I'm going to be famous. Forget New York. I'm moving to LA. And when I was in LA, I was dancing in a nightclub. And as the cliche story goes, someone came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm a choreographer for so and so." So that got me started in that career.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I probably was doing that for about 3 or 4 years, and then got a hernia, broke my
Mm.
leg, broke my foot, started to have back issues, and
It's a lot. It's hard on the body, isn't it?
it was very
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. As an athlete, there's a finite period there. So, well, I appreciate you taking us back because I just, that was like, it flared off and I thought, well, that's a fascinating story. So here's what I've learned about you in this conversation is that having a difficult childhood can really pay off in some real significant ways if you let it work for you as you have, and do the work. And that learning really can take you into a lot of places if you learn how to learn and use it to your advantage. That the world can really be your oyster by proven in your many trajectories in your different stories. So I applaud you for doing the work to help people, not only in learning development, but individuals in their lives, do this in a more powerful and specific way, because it's very specific rather than just advocate for yourself and know your value. So thank you for the details and the practical ways that you teach people. It's really fun to listen to you. And thanks for being a guest.
My pleasure. I'll leave you with this final thought. I have this post-it note here that
Uh,
I've kept for years and years, not the same one, but it,
it says learning changes lives,
le-
just for those who aren't watching the video.
learning changes lives. And for me, I'm my own test case with that, and that's where my passion has come from, is that I recognize truly the value of it. And once you learn how to learn, you
Yeah.
become unstoppable. And I
Hmm.
want that for everyone else because I know what it's like to live in fear, to worry about the future of your job, to worry about being laid off, to worry about AI, not knowing what's coming. And the antidote to that, and the only skill that you need to be able to continuously do, is learn.
Yeah.
Is then
And that's not about being super smart.
no,
That's not about IQ being off the chart. That's about learning how to unlock those different qualities as you described when you were learning to be a trainer at Microsoft. How do we break it down and just make sense out of it? And there's lots of help around to do that now. So this isn't about being the brightest in the room. This is about the one who's really is building that muscle.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not the
Yeah.
brightest one in any room, but I'm okay with that because
Yeah.
I don't need to be. What I can be is a lifelong learner, and so can
Yeah.
all of your listeners.
Well, it's your passion and now your purpose comes through loud and clear. So where so you do a lot of speaking, and where can people find you and your
LinkedIn.
books?
LinkedIn is
LinkedIn.
really a place where I share most of my thoughts. You can get either my books on any bookseller of your choice. Amazon is kind of the easiest one.
Yeah.
KeithKeating.com.
KeithKeating.com, let's make that clear. You earned it. Dr. Keith Keating, the trusted learning advisor, and Hidden Value are his books. Find him on LinkedIn. He does have quite a number of people that pay attention. So add to his following. You won't regret it. And thank you so much for your time and for being a guest. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next time on Shine a Light.